8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Project Egg Show, where you can come to get inspired by incredible entrepreneurs who are literally changing the world. Today, we have the honor of speaking with James Schramko, founder of Superfastbusiness, who's had over 3.2 million podcast downloads, over 7,000 blog subscribers, and has helped over 3,000 students. James is based in Sydney, Australia, and has started, developed, and sold multiple successful businesses. He's a passionate father, an investor, surfer, husband, coach, mentor, and lover of freedom. James excels in making the complex world of business simple so that your quality of life can improve. He started online as a general manager working with Mercedes-Benz, commanding a large team of employees in a multi-million-dollar business by day, being an online marketer by night. And since buying his first laptop in 2005, James has sold well over $10 million online. So without any further ado, please help me welcome James. How you doing today?
Good, thank you. Someone's done some research.
Yes, sir. It's it's hard not to know about all the incredible things that you've done. So I really do appreciate you coming onto the show today and carving out the time to do this. So thank you.
Well, it's my pleasure.
All righty. So let's jump right in. I want to know, what is your story?
Well, it's a fairly ordinary story, really. There was no bankruptcies or park benches in my life. I had good parents in a good suburb of Sydney. I went to a nice school. There was a financial setback in the 90s for my parents, so that changed my living situation. And I started feeling the pressure to get a job. So I started working about 1991. Sounds like a long time ago now. And from there, I got married, had kids, worked my way through sales roles into management and senior management. And then I suspected that wasn't going to be the end game. I was feeling like I needed to change and to have my own business. So from about 2005, I set about figuring out how to build a website and get myself online, even though I didn't know what I was actually going to sell. But I figured it was important. I just had this feeling that I needed to be moving down that path. And when I finally got some success in the beginning, I just kept running with it. And then I found that a lot of the entrepreneurial types online were lacking the core business foundational skills that I'd learned working my way up through real businesses, offline businesses, very complicated businesses, like the technology industry, the finance industry, and the automotive industry are all pretty heavy hitters when it comes to business. So I just found my spot. And over the years, I've also been able to wind back a bit of the work side of things and to start, I guess you'd think of it in core terms of being semi-retired, but I stack a 3-day work week and have 4 days off. And I think that's something I could sustain for a long time now. I'm raising a newborn at the moment and I surf every day. So those things are important to me, as well as doing good work.
It's interesting that you use the word sustain, because I think a lot about the sustainability of how many hours you put in a week and the things that you're actually doing. How did you come to your current, I guess, balance or your current, weekly work feng shui, if you will? How did you develop that?
It really probably came a couple of decades ago when I saw a presentation from an accountant and a property mogul. And I was quite formative at the time, and I was definitely working a 6-day a week. And they were talking about in the accounting practice, this guy actually plans to have one day of the week where he does client meetings, another day where he does building his business stuff. And that was really the first time that I became aware of this concept of lifestyle design. And it started to challenge my thinking around 9 to 5. And then as I'm driving to work every morning in the traffic, in my suit with my fancy watch and pen and shoes, in my Mercedes-Benz heading off to the dealership, I was thinking, looking around at all these other people as well, I think this is actually stupid. And the more research I did around this, I discovered people like Peter Drucker, who was talking about the knowledge worker and how that's going to change the game, and how the deconstruction of traditional education establishments, the basis of the 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, it sort of stems back to the industrial age where we had to man textile machines. And it just challenged my whole thinking. I'm like, what if I do a counterintuitive approach? What if I can challenge the status quo? And I've discovered the secrets. I have this secret world that I don't think many people actually know. Like even surfing, if you want to go surfing and you have a job, you have to go before work. And if you're a school kid, you go before school, and then after work and after school. And maybe during the lunchtime, you'll see tradespeople's vans parked and they're having a quick surf. But between 9 and 11 and 2 and 3:30, it's empty because everyone's at work. So I found this counter lifestyle. If you go to the cinema on Monday during the day, you could literally be the only person in the cinema. It's like I have my entire private cinema that just happens to be publicly available, but no one's available to use it. There are downsides too. It means it's harder to have friendships, and it's harder to fit in with everyone else because, you know, their peak time on the weekend when everyone's trying to cattle crush the mall or you know, a restaurant, because it's the only time everyone's got available. So I just think, you know, I started to challenge which days I want to work and what work I want to do on those days. And I learned more about the Pareto principle and about how a lot of the things that we're doing are completely a waste of time anyway. And I started to think about what those things might be. And then I also, even though when I quit my job, I thought I'm not going to have staff, I'm not going to have stock, and I'm not going to have an office. Well, I still don't have an office, and I don't have physical stock, but I do have a team, and my team are the saviors. They really have built the life around me because I can have them help me out with the tasks that I don't want to do, or I shouldn't be doing, or I'm not even that good at. And I can focus on just the things I want to do, or that I am good at, or that I could get paid more for, and that will move the lever for. So if anything, I've recreated my old job without all the bad bits, only the good bits, and I get paid about 10 times more, and I work probably a fifth of the time. I put in about 20 hours a week is the number that I've come to that suits me.
There are a lot of doors there that I want to open. One of them is this lifestyle architecture, because I feel like that's going to look different for everybody else. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about identifying those key tasks or those key responsibilities that we need to focus on as individuals. And then I also want to talk about I also want to talk about what it really took for you to build this life, because, you know, you kind of talked about like a few decades in a few minutes, and I feel like there's a lot more feeling and emotion that you actually experienced that I would experience too. So let's start with the first one, which is lifestyle architecture. Can you talk about specifically, like, how did you identify what you wanted your life to look like? How did you identify really what was important to you?
Well, I think I spent time thinking about what I would like. So that's step one. I remember doing a workshop in the dealership. We had this consultant come in who was an expert in helping people optimize themselves. And she was doing some tricky sort of hypnosis, some unpacking exercises. She had a bag full of scarves, and I remember her walking around the room, taking scarves out of the bag, as she's saying, you got to unpack the past experiences and let them go. It was all very hippie and trippy. But there was this mechanic there, and he was in his late 60s, and he just started weeping. He just burst into tears because it was the first time in his entire life that he realized that he actually had a choice, that he could decide to do something different, because he went from school to being an apprentice to being a mechanic. And then the next, 40 something years, 50 years of not even thinking about it. I think other people talk about it. People are walking around in society like zombies. They're just on their phone, doing their thing, do some work, watch Netflix, do some work, have a few drinks, watch Netflix, hang out with friends, do what they do, but they just drift through life. They're not consciously at the steering wheel. So for me, the big awareness was that I can actually grab the steering wheel and take control of this. And everything that I have is the grand total sum of all the things that I've done in the past and everything I've learned and implemented in action to get to this point. So now what I do is I think about how can I set my future self up for a better life. So I put some energy and thought into the future, but I don't dwell on it. Dan Sullivan talks about the horizon. A lot of people have this sort of Insta version of life. They want the jet, the boat, the Lamborghini, the travel, and all the material things. That's their perception of what a perfect life would be. Or they dream of winning the lottery. You're not going to win the lottery, right? You've got more chance of getting struck by lightning twice than winning the major lottery payoff. But you can take control of your own life. You can take full responsibility and stop whinging and complaining about the politicians, the economy, the customers, all the things, all the excuses you want to have. And this mentor of mine, he used to say, write down every single excuse you can possibly think of. Are you done? Now tear it up. He used to say, tear up your excuse list. So it's when you want to put yourself in the driver's seat, when you want to take responsibility, that's when your life can start to change. But you've got to take responsibility, and no one will do this for you. A lot of people start off with partnerships, and they do 50-50 partnerships with someone else in the secret hope that the other person will do all the work. It's just not going to happen that way. And most partnerships become sinking ships because reality sets in, and you realize that it's a little bit like a communism where everyone tries to do the minimum possible and hope that they get their fair share, but that's just not how it's going to work out.
That's powerful. I love what you said about writing down all of your excuses. All right, are you done? Now throw it away. Get that out of there. I love that. And I love the concept also of really taking extreme ownership. And by the way, I recently read that book by Jocko Willink. That's why I use that terminology. But I love that, you're kind of talking about the same, not kind of, you're talking about the same concept there of really taking responsibility, recognizing that you have a choice, thinking about, okay, where do I actually want to go? What do I actually want my life to look like? And then grabbing control of that steering wheel and getting there. I think that's awesome.
I have a feeling one of the Brian Tracy cassettes that I listened to a lot in the early 90s was The Psychology of Selling. And I'm pretty sure he said, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. And that stuck pretty hard with me. And I also remember listening to some other audio cassettes, which a client actually gave me. I got given cassettes by people because they could see that I had something, a spark of sorts, and I was enthusiastic about my attitude. And I was listening to other ones about Born Rich was another one there was a story in that about this guy who wanted to live on acreage, but he lived in the city and he thought it would be impossible. But one day he found this acreage property inside the city, And he managed to secure it. And I actually found myself probably about 8 or 9 years ago now, living on 5 acres, just 15 or 20 minutes away from the city in Sydney. I was like, wow, I've kind of recreated that vision. But I think to answer your question in the most succinct form, it's be aware that you actually have control of your life. Like that's something most people don't even know. And once you're aware of it, take full responsibility for what happens next and do some things now to set yourself up for a better future. Don't dedicate your entire life to the future, and don't dwell on the past. I mean, you have to live in the present and be here now, but also at some point you've got to do something for the next phase. So it's about being responsible to your future self would be my perfect summary of that.
Let's talk about identifying the most important things to focus on or to do. And specifically, I want to talk about the Pareto principle, but I want to talk about it through the lens of your life. What were those most important tasks or responsibilities that you had to focus on, the biggest levers that you pulled in order to build the success that you have?
The most important lever to pull is to have an offer that converts. It's something you can sell that people would actually want to buy, that creates value for them. So finding that is the key. For me, I've done particularly well with recurring subscriptions. My whole business is recurring subscription these days, and I have done for a decade. That's what gives me sustainability. That's what protects me from dips. I've not had lower than a 6-figure month for 10 years straight. And not many online marketers could say that. And that's because I know my next month's income. In fact, I know what a customer is worth for me, and I know how long they're going to stick around, and I track such things. And that's how I create predictability. That's how I can hire my team with confidence. That's how they can be so secure and happy, because they know they have a job for life. And they're not going to get asked to leave next month if we have a bad launch or whatever. So I've taken out the stress from my business, and I've found the leverage point. So it starts with having an offer that converts. Without that, you've got nothing. And to that end, having a way to fill that offer is really the next thing you need. And for me, that was podcasts, and also more recently doing videos to supplement that. But I've been podcasting for 10 years. As of in a month from now. So I've been very consistent with that. And that has been my number one activity to sustain my business. If I just podcast for 35 minutes a week, I can sustain a 7-figure business. And then the other component is delivering on the sales. So because I don't have to scratch around praying for new customers all the time and spending 99% of my efforts trying to look up the latest Facebook course or funnel and all this sort of stuff, I can spend my time actually fulfilling, like delivering for my customers, which in practical terms is me logging into my community and answering questions on a daily basis. And I've been doing that for 10 years as well. So if I just look after my team, I maintain my offer and make sure that it's attractive. I create some content to drive people to my offer, and then I fulfill on all my promises and exceed people's expectations. Then I have a good life.
Let's talk about that offer. Did you just put something together and just throw it out there, and then people started just throwing cash at you? Like, how did you actually build that offer? What was the process there?
The answer is no. I didn't really know what I wanted to sell. I kind of found success in that regard through a side door. So probably back up a little bit. When I was a salesperson, I was very good at it. I was the top selling Mercedes-Benz salesperson in the whole of Australia. And prior to that, I was the number one for BMW in the whole of Australia. So I was really, really good at that job. And I actually created very happy customers who would repeatedly buy from me. And there was this one customer, and by the time I'd reached a management level, he actually came to me, and it was 2005, just to date this. And he said, whatever you've been doing to me, could you come and teach my team of financial planners that? Because I don't know what you're doing, but I just want to buy more cars from you. You always help me get the right car at the right time. It costs the right amount. And no one's been able to do that for me. He'd bought 7 or 8 cars from me at this point. He'd followed me from BMW to Mercedes-Benz and just kept buying cars. And he had a wildly successful practice, and he had a bunch of salespeople who weren't getting the same results. So I thought about that, and I thought, yeah, okay, I think I would like to do that. It was a challenge. I'd already presented to my mum's business group about selling. She'd asked me to do it as a favor. So I thought I'll just develop that. And I was already teaching my salespeople in the dealership how to sell. I was very good at that too. I could create winning salespeople from scratch, teaching them the system that I had developed for myself. So I went to the owner of the business and I said, a customer has asked me if I could teach his team how to sell. They're financial planners. If I do this on my day off on annual leave, would this be acceptable? I don't feel there's any sort of competition. And he said, yeah, do it, but make sure you charge a lot. So I had some support, and I always sought the blessing of the owner of the business. I'm not like the sneaky to the side thing. Even when I was running my own business after this, I always had the blessing of the owner, and I always made a deal that made it attractive for them to accept that deal. So I remember I formed my business. I went out and registered my business with the Australian Securities Institute or whatever it was. I got that piece of paper. I now had a business. And of course, you think about the things like first-time business owners think about, I'll probably need a logo, or I need business cards, which are totally unimportant, especially now. But I didn't get the business card or the logo, but I definitely thought about it. And then I remember writing my invoice number 1 for this client, and I charged him. It was a half-day workshop initially, and I think I charged $3,000 or $4,000 for a half-day workshop. And I invoiced him. He paid me. I went and purchased a laptop for the whole amount, $4,000 or whatever it was. I bought a Fujitsu laptop, 2005. So this is my first reinvestment of my business. I put all the money that I got. So I've never had a loan. I've never borrowed money. I've never had investors or partners requiring capital. I've been self-funded from day one. And with that laptop, I planned out this most brilliant PowerPoint of sales training. And then I printed up hard copies. I logged to the facility. We got there, and the guy who's in charge of the projector with the key to the cupboard was a no-show. So I couldn't even use the laptop or the projector. Luckily, I'd printed out the hard copies. I handed them out. I did the training. It went really well. He invited me to do it again. So I did another half day or a full day training this time. I think we trained for half a day, and then I actually coached them on the phone to make sales after the campaign. It was a win-back campaign of people in their database who were unresponsive. And so now I had a business and a laptop, but I didn't really know what was next. So I'd observed that my parents' travel agency had been hard hit by the internet. And I also observed that customers were walking into the showroom knowing more about our models than the manufacturer was telling us. And they were getting it all on the internet. So this internet, it was quite seductive. I was hearing about this possibility to get rich. John Reese, around about this time, made $1 million in a single day with his traffic secret launch. So I was kind of inspired by that, thinking maybe the internet's a place to sell. I was looking for a Jay Abraham book for a salesperson I was training online, and I got this page, and it had all sorts of bold and italic and yellow highlight, and which I didn't know at the time was sales copy. It was very compelling though, and all I had to do was give them my email address. And it was from Rich Sheffren and Stephen Pierce. And if I give them my email address, I'd get all these free Jay Abraham reports, which was like, gold. And so I put in my email address, and lo and behold, after I put in my email address, they said that if I were to give away these reports, and people were then to go and buy something, that they would actually send me commission. I thought, this is fantastic. And there was this site called ClickBank, and I had to register an ID, and I really struggled with all this. My internet service provider at the time had the ability for you to put a page on their thing. So I mucked around. I rolled out the cable, plugged in, did the dial up, and built this page. And it was black with like green text, like the old War Games logo. It's probably before your time. You're probably only born when that movie came out. But old computers had black screens and green text. And I remember I was so excited. I was going to make all this money from these links where people were going to get the report. Nothing, not a thing. And like 9 months later, I was still struggling I knew I had to build my own website on my own domain. So very slowly figured out, buy some domains, figure out how to point them to a server, set up an email address. Building a website was a nightmare. I tried free tools. I tried the expensive Dreamweaver one, couldn't figure it out at all. I'm not a programmer, not a developer. I finally found one that was easy to use that worked on my laptop called Excite Pro. And I built a demo site with it. It was that easy. And so I thought I'll make the demo site about Excite Pro and all the features it has, and I published it. And then I actually thought it was pretty good. And someone eventually, and I think it was even an assisted sale, like a soccer dad or something, that I was just in their ear. I was obsessed with online marketing at this point, and listening to all the Americans talk about it and getting inspired about the possibilities. And I think I convinced him to buy it. So I did an assisted sale, and I finally got a commission. And it took about 9 months from the start till I got my $49.25. But that was enough of a seed to get started. Then I directed all my energy into learning about copywriting, article marketing, search engine optimization, and I just developed this business into the next month. I made a couple of sales, and then a few more, and then more, and I built it up from a couple of $100, $500, $1,000, $1,500, $3,000, $5,000 a month, and I kind of got stuck at $5,000 a month. And then I eventually bought Traffic Secrets on special. It's like the last run out version for $398 or something. And I found one tip in there that I used to double it. So I got it to 10, and then I was stuck again. I still had a job at this time. So 2.5 years into it, I was making 10 grand a month, working from 9:30 till 2 or 3 in the morning at night, and then going to a full-time day job as a general manager, and trying to bridge the gap between that and my pay, which was at least double that. I was earning around $300,000 a year. And I have a family and mortgages, so I couldn't just quit, which I never suggest anyone does, by the way. It's not a good way to do it. So I was on my vine like Tarzan, trying to swing to the next one, but I couldn't let go of it and swing through the air. I had to get a firm grab, and I was halfway there. And from there, I ended up, I started to mine out the things. I started selling information products. So not only selling to the people who wanted to build a website, but hey, what about all the people who already bought this website software? I can show them how to optimize and improve what they're getting with that. So I made this cheat sheet, and I sold the cheat sheet. And the first time I put that up for sale, back then there was this Warrior Forum, and I made a Warrior Forum special offer. And I was moving house that week. And when I went live with it, I actually made $1,000 a day for that week selling this. There was a huge market of people who already had the software, who had heard about this and wanted it. And it was $40 a copy. And that's when I thought, wow, that's actually my wage right there. If I could sustain this, I could quit my job. And I was reading the 4-Hour Work Week at the time. I was reading all the Jay Abraham stuff I could get my hands on. Peter Drucker. I'm a voracious reader. I've got thousands of books. Love reading about this stuff. And I was implementing it. And then it was the chase. The chase was on, and it was really just, could I outrun this freight train before getting squashed? I was burning the candle at both ends. I was working day job and a night job. I was definitely suffering health-wise, not getting enough sleep, over caffeine, putting on weight, feeling unhappy, and even angry at times, just like the frustration of how hard it was. Then I added, then I started promoting other people's recurring subscriptions, like affiliate forums, etc., and built-in money. I learnt about CPA marketing when I went to a conference in the States. I joined a mastermind, which I won as a competition, and I got some really good insider knowledge of how cost per view marketing works. At this point, I was spending, I'd quit my job by going out to a couple of people who I'd built websites for and saying, I want to do your online marketing. Now I'll do it for a monthly fee. And they said, fantastic. When can you start? And then I told them the price. It was $5,500 a month. And I had 2 clients. So that got me over the threshold and I was able to quit. Then I got into CPA marketing, and I was spending $3,000 or $4,000 a day on ads. I was driving traffic on AdWords and even Facebook 10 years ago. I was one of the very first advertisers on that platform. And eventually I sold so much of this guy's product that they went broke. They couldn't fulfill and they had refunds. And then they stiffed me for the payment, so I didn't get to pay back. And that first Christmas after I quit my job, I had a cash flow crunch. And I'm like, right, that's it. I'm not going to be in this position ever for the rest of my life. And I started my membership. So it's like I picked all the problems of the memberships that I was promoting that they were weak on. My number one bugbear was you join a membership and the famous guys, they're going to teach you all this stuff and everything. And then they're never there. They never show up. Like, you never hear from them. They're like, they've made their money and they're off doing whatever, and they run it into the ground. So I'm like, I'm going to show up. So in the beginning of 2009, I started my membership community. I still did affiliate marketing. I still did launches. I did mentoring, coaching. I then started doing a switch from affiliate marketing of website software to having a website development team and a service. Then we started doing search engine optimization for my membership communities. So spinning a few plates. So I probably had 10 different income streams. Had affiliate marketing, mentoring, workshops, my membership, my website development, search engine optimization, and a bunch of other stuff. And eventually over time, I sold off my SEO business. I sold off my website business. I kept my core membership. I kept my higher level mastermind. And those 2 memberships have been running for 10 years and 9 years respectively. They're the core. And now I go into more equity positions where I'm a percentage revenue collector, a royalty agreement, if you like, with businesses who I can really help and grow. And so that's my investment portfolio from the active side. And then, of course, I take the profits from my business and I invest them outside the business, so that not only is my business sustainable now, but I'm fully protected financially for the future. So my future self's going to be fine as long as I can maintain my health. But to answer your question in a succinct way, there's been an awful lot of effort and energy and learning and application and lessons along the way to get to the point that I'm at now. And I don't think there's a way to not have to go through some of that. Certainly with good education, like having a good coach or taking some of the shortcuts can work. But you really hit on a subtlety that most people miss, and that is most marketers or businesses are not focused on sustainability. They're focused on a short-term win, and that's very short-sighted. I envisaged the business that I have now a decade before I got it, and I just built my business around that. And one of the rule of thumbs for me was I want lifetime customers, because it's just much easier to deal with the same people and mature and marinate that relationship over time, and not have to go and get new ones. And I just looked at my numbers, and over the last 7.5 years since I started tracking since I got the dashboard that I have now, I still have 26% of all the customers I've ever gotten in the last 7.5 years are still current recurring subscription members. So it's a great retention.
That is amazing. And I love the chronology of that. Like, it seems like you went from, hey, let me figure this out, to, okay, I'm selling other people's products. I'm kind of struggling through and learning the things that I need to learn, deploying the skills, your sales skills that you had developed. And then, you started to voraciously figure this stuff out, and copywriting and article marketing and SEO and paid traffic. And then it seems like you just kind of built on the past successes. And I think one of the turning points, please correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the turning points was when you switched from solely the affiliate marketing space into building your own products, because you didn't ever want to be in that space right after Christmas or right during Christmas, where those people could not deliver on what you had accomplished. And then it seems like from there, you built out the services, you built out the membership, the mastermind, you eventually sold the service pieces, stuck with the mastermind, the membership, the podcast, and then you've just been consistent ever since.
Yeah. And there's there is a subtle thing there. I layered up my skills and then I had to unlayer them again. Like as at right now, I wouldn't be able to log into Google Ads and set up campaigns. Same with Facebook. I don't log into my WordPress website. I don't know how to do that anymore. So a lot of the skills I had 10 years ago, I no longer possess, but I possess more important skills. I'm a damn good coach and mentor now because I've been putting my energy there and having to let go of other stuff. It's like you really have to swing from one vine to another. I like that metaphor the most because by the time Tarzan gets to the magical treehouse in the middle of the forest, he's let go of a lot of vines along the way. So you got to let go because you can accumulate a lot of stuff over time. It's not practical for me to be an expert Facebook ad guy and an expert copywriter and an expert web designer and still think that I've got a good chance of helping a business owner. Predominantly what I'm helping people with is to let go of stuff they shouldn't be doing in the first place. So my learning curve was steep, and my income at the beginning, it took me a few years to get up and running. Once I quit my job, I've never looked back financially, but what I have done is I've tuned out a lot of the wasted effort and hard work, and that's just over time you can refine. It's like you almost have to accumulate stuff and then get rid of stuff, like to chop away and refine and simplify and get down. Like the equipment that I use now to make videos compared to 5-6 years ago is vastly different. Back then I had the DSLR camera, the 1.2 mil 50 lens. I had boom mics, separate audio, lights on stands. Like people would come around to my house and they're like, what sort of movies are you making here? It's like, it was too much equipment. Now I use an iPhone, and a tripod if I'm lucky. It's like you can make it a lot leaner and you can make it a lot simpler, but you almost have to, and especially stubborn entrepreneurs like us, we almost have to try the hard way first, and then we have to pare back to what works. But probably the greatest thing that I've maintained is a commitment to change. When I quit my job, I made a promise to myself that I will commit to innovation. I learned from Peter Drucker that business is about marketing and innovation. And innovation is the one that trips people up. You're streaming this to 18 platforms. That wasn't possible a few years ago. You will have a market advantage over the people who don't know how to do that or haven't, stuck in the old ways. You got to be willing to change and adapt. And I not only accept it, I welcome it. I thrive on it. The fact that things change is my weapon because I can let go faster than most people. I can swing to the new vine, get a good hold on it. But also in the background, I've been really consistent with my model. So the things that work, I will keep. And the things that need to change, I'll chuck.
That's a really interesting metaphor of swinging from vine to vine and letting go of the ones that you don't need. I mean, if you just think about it logically, you can't go to the next vine if you're still holding on to the one back there.
You won't move anywhere.
Right.
And you're like, well, everyone else has made it to the other side of the jungle, but you're still stuck on your vine because you're clinging on for dear life, because you haven't come to the realization yet that change is mandatory. And someone who surfs every day, I can tell you, that beach out the front here is never, ever the same. I've surfed now for 5.5, 6 years, maybe. I don't think I've seen the same conditions more than a few times in 6 years. Like, if the ocean changes, if the sand underneath the water changes, the lineup's always different. It's just how life is, vibrational change, and to expect things will stay the same is just crazy.
So I want to talk about a couple of things here, and I know I mentioned 3 things that I wanted to get into, but I really feel like you kind of dove into both of those, and you really covered that. So I don't think we need to really drill down there. But I want to talk about letting go of the things that you must let go of, because I find that is one of the things that a lot of people that I talk to struggle with. How do you identify the things that you need to let go of, and how do you identify, like, how do you actually let them go? I mean, I know it's logically it's simple. It's just like, that thing, I'm not going to do it anymore. But I mean, is there more to it? Like, how do you actually do it?
So I use this sort of idea of a task transfer. It's like, initially you're starting with all the tasks. You can do this exercise with Post-it notes. You could write down everything you do on a Post-it note and stick it on a whiteboard on the left-hand column, which is you. And then you could the first round is, of these things on the Post-it notes, they're things that no one should do, right? And there will be. For example, I used to do things that I no longer do, and I just stopped doing them, and no one said anything about it. Like, every single week, I used to make a custom video in my membership, going around the membership, doing a tour, talking about what's hot this week and that sort of stuff. And I'd film it with a screen share and with my DSLR camera, and it would take me a while to prepare. I'd have to open all the tabs, get it ready. Then I'd film it, and then I'd have to edit it, and then I'd upload it to a video player. Then I'd put the embed video in the forum, and then I'd go to my email software, then I'd write an email, then I'd broadcast it to members. And I did that for years. And then I stopped doing it, and not one person ever from the last 5 years has said anything about it. So it's like just wasting an hour or 2 a week on that. So there's a lot of things like that you could literally stop doing, and the world won't change. And I learned a lot about this from a boss I had who was hopeless at implementing anything. Anything you'd send to him, it would never get done. And it used to blow my mind that he'd get away with it. It would infuriate me initially, because I'm a follow-through person, which is rare in a salesperson. I actually have my C on a disc profile actually kicks up above the line, and I can actually do paperwork. But it would drive me insane. Like, this guy wouldn't do stuff, but he still wouldn't be penalized for it. And then I realized, like, things just happen. Like taking your hand out of a bucket of water, it just finds a way to fill the gap. So take away the Post-it notes that no one should be doing, and put them to one side and see if anyone notices. And if no one notices, or there's no big consequence, then chuck them. And then you think about. So that's the first thing. We probably think that things are important, but they might not be. It's important to know that not everything is equal. As soon as you accept that, it's like, okay, let's hunt for the things that just aren't that important or urgent. We then want to find out, okay, are there things that we're not that good at, or that we don't enjoy, that we could find someone else that would be happy to do it or be good at it, who won't cost that much, or certainly would cost less than what we could trade our time for. So I use this concept of effective hourly rate to score things. My effective hourly rate for things like cleaning it'd be quite low, because it's only the cost to hire someone. I can have 2 people come to my house every 2 weeks, and I can pay them $100 to clean my house. And for $100, that's good value for me. to get someone else to do. Because if I spent the time they spend, I think they spend an hour here, and there's 2 of them. So imagine if I spent 2 hours cleaning, that's $50 an hour that it would basically translate to. What could I do for 2 hours? If I put on a group call for a mastermind for 2 hours a week, which I just happen to do with Silver Circle, I could make 30 grand a month from that. That is going to work out at more than $1,000 an hour. So I'm better off to do that. So which activity can we trade to someone else? So I started doing that with support, and then I did it with content, and then podcasts. Like I've done a lot of podcast episodes. I've probably recorded 1,000. Okay. So every time I'd record a podcast, I would have to sit down, and then I'd have to listen back to my podcast and take out any ums and ahs and put an intro and an outro and adjust the noise levels and run it through Orphonic and put it up to ID, tag it, put the artwork, load it to Amazon, stick it into a blog post, do the title, write the post, put some tweetables, publish the post, go to my email software, write a broadcast, send it out. I used to do all that myself. Plus I'd script and film the video and from the beginning to the end. Then I thought, you know what? I just don't want to be editing my own podcast anymore. I don't want to log into the blog and post it. And I don't want to send the emails. So I'm going to have to get my team to help me with this. So I just explained to them, I don't want to do it anymore. Would you do it for me? They work full time for me and only for my business. I've got a small team of absolute ninjas who I've hand reared, like I've trained them. I sit beside them with a laptop and say, this is what I do. I do this and then this and then this. They take notes and then now we'll try it together. And then they do it. And after a couple of times, I say, just do that for the next 1,000 episodes. So now my only time commitment for content is the actual time when I'm recording. And after that, I drag it into Drive and everything else happens automatically after that. So I've built team around that. So it's obvious, those tasks. The ones that are less obvious are the tasks that you're really good at and that you're hanging on to for dear life. It's hard to drag those tasks from someone. And this is often the difference between a job and a business. So it's a business if it works without you. It's a job if it doesn't. So think of like a Uber driver. He's only making money while he's driving the car. The taxi company owner, he's making money when his taxis come and rent the taxi from him and go and take the taxi and then bring the taxi back. He's, if he can make more money than what he pays on the lease and the maintenance, he's got a business. So I try and eliminate the things that are in my business that I've been hanging on to that I shouldn't. So I was hanging on to the weekly roundup. Now my team does that. We actually got software that analyzes my entire forum. It looks for the most topical discussions based on reply count over the last 7 days, the most views, and they put those to the top and they do a summary and they send it out. That gets a 65% open rate and it keeps members coming back. And it's more effective than when I was making these custom videos, which I just stopped doing. So what can you replace with a better or innovative version of? Question absolutely everything. Like, why are you doing that? Like the lady preparing the baking each Sunday, the Sunday roast, with the lamb, and she'd cut the legs off and put it in the pan, and the daughter would say, why do you cut the legs off? And she goes, I don't know, but my mum used to do that. So they go around to the nursing home and the kid says, Grandma, why did you cut the legs off the pan? She goes, well, we had to do that because it wouldn't fit in the pan otherwise. We used to have a small pan. But no one ever questioned, why do we still do that? So it's very important to question, is this still relevant? Should we do this task? And if we're going to do it, is there a better way to do it? And now with my team, they're doing all sorts of innovations on how we distribute our content and where it goes. Over the years, we've just continually innovated. We put our stuff up to Spotify, SoundCloud. We now put the whole show instead of a summary to all the different platforms, so that native viewing experience. The team will take on a life of their own once they understand why you're doing something and what result you want. And in terms of other tasks, it's really like work out, track what you're actually doing and where you spend your time. And it's very easy to do that now. It's rescue time on your computer or insights or moments on your phone. It will tell you exactly where you spend your time and calculate your effective hourly rate per product or per service that you have. So I used to wear different hats. How much time was I spending on my service business versus how much I was making in profit? And that was actually one of the most profitable businesses I had. Even though I had a large team, I could get paid from the customer, pay my team's wages, and make a 50% profit margin on a 7-figure business that I spent probably 15 minutes a week on. It was a great business. And it was also something I could sell in the end. So just like it was a win in every single category. And that's why now I'm building more revenue share deals, because they have a recurring royalty nature, and they have the element of leverage where I can leverage a business without my direct personal time. Then that's going to win out over tasks that require my time. So I'm looking for leverage in my tasks. That's the short answer. Look for leverage, and if possible, sell your task off to someone at a lower rate than what you could be getting if you did something else. So it's the opportunity cost principle that you would use there.
I feel like you're dropping so many value bombs here, and there are like so many gems that people can take and implement now to see some insanely fast and very effective results. Like for everybody who's watching, listening, I would highly encourage you to go back and listen to this a couple of times, because seriously, like, this is massive value that you are hearing right now. So thank you, James, for sharing all this. I want to talk a little bit about philosophy, because it seems like one of the things that you've been able to do very well is to sell and to build relationships with people, like the gentleman who asked you to do that very first sales presentation. And I believe that one of the foundational elements of not only sales, not only relationships, but of humanity, and I know that's a very big statement, I don't say that lightly, is connection. So I want to understand your philosophy on how to develop deep, meaningful, and genuine connection with another human being.
That one's relatively easy, I think. You just have to care. That's the underlying technique I use. It's very simple. One of my bosses has actually accused me of caring too much, if that's even possible. But I would say that's my trait. I outcare others.
Oh, hey, we lost your video. Oh, bummer. That was some massive value. Well, people, this is what happens on a live stream sometimes. There are technical difficulties, but I think one of the beauties of what James was saying was that he really focuses on leverage. And I think that is a brilliant concept, especially when he was talking. Oh, James, there you are. Not sure he can. Not sure.
I'm back.
All right.
Fantastic. Sorry about that. It seems like someone was trying desperately to get a hold of me, and it took over my phone.
All good. Well, hey, we're still going live, but we can't see you. Your video's still.
Oh, hang on. Let me just get you on. Does that work?
There we go. Awesome. So yeah, people, we're back on. This is one of the fun parts of doing a live stream, is that you never actually know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I was wondering if I'll get a courier or something. Just care. That's all you have to do. It seems so obvious, but it's my observation of a lot of marketers. They're happy to send out email messages and convince you to buy stuff. And it was one of my original gripes when I was purchasing things. Like, all I wanted when I started online was for someone to actually show me what they're doing, or to actually give a shit. And I don't think people are too sincere. I think they're money driven or goals driven. They're very interested in their goals, paying off their bills and whatever. But somewhere along the way, they forgot about the customer. But I think the customer is absolutely everything. And you have a duty of care to your customer. Jay Abraham talks about that. And if you look after people, they'll notice that, and you will have a great business. So if you want to connect with someone, actually be interested in them rather than trying to be interesting. I'm not sure whose quote that is, but I liked that one. And so when I was selling, I had a philosophy of selling that made sense for me. That was very different to the way most people describe selling. Most people think selling is a dirty process of pushing your product onto someone. I think selling is simply it's a process. It's an unemotional process of change from one situation to a better alternative situation. Someone should only buy if they're going to be better off. So all you have to do is create the environment that helps them see they'll be better off. So the way I approach it is when I get up every day, how can I help this person be better off? Which involves caring. And if you can do that, money will come your way. It will flow into you.
That's awesome. I think that's a great philosophy. And, one of the things that I see a lot of people struggle with is, I talk to a lot of people, as I'm sure you do too. And I see a lot of people like, I don't like to sell, or I'm not a salesperson. And I always think, it sounds like you don't really believe in what you're selling at the core. It seems like one of the things, because like you said,
not their fault. They just have a different definition of what selling is that makes it unattractive for them. So they sabotage their sales success. So they're not going to engage in an activity that they feel icky about. So by redefining that, people talk about reframing, etc. By finding a definition that makes it work for you is the secret to unlocking that. I'm not a pushy salesperson. I'm not the guy who sends 17 emails on the last day of a launch. I find that extraordinarily disrespectful because I know they don't care about me. No human on the planet needs 17 emails at the deadline to push, cajole, and beg for a sale. That's not good for the customer, and it's an obvious sign that the marketer doesn't care about the prospect. If you can be respectful with your process, if everything's framed for the customer being better off, and that includes the difference between them having your product or service or not. The alternative of them not having your product or service, if that means they're not going to be better off, then it's okay to